For landlords, by landlords. The Rent Perfect Podcast with David Pickron.
Scotty Aubrey with me today. Scotty, are you edumacated today?
I'm educated all the time.
Are you edumacated
yes,
today?
Yeah, I'm a college graduate.
Welcome to the Rent Perfect Podcast today. Happy to have you. Going to talk a little bit about student debt. Go ahead and like and subscribe. We'd love to hear your comments, all that kind of stuff we talk about. Let's get right into this topic. Student debt right now it's just loans. This whole thing is just swirling around me in every which way.
Well, you're getting ready to step into it full speed here.
I've got my kids this week are applying for their student loans. I've got one going to North Carolina. I've got one going to law school in Idaho. So I'm like, guys, listen, you got to figure out how to pay for your school. I'm kind of, the gravy train's over, right? So they've been off and, trying to apply in their little FESMA or whatever it's called, little portal.
Yep.
But they make it pretty easy for you to get in debt. I've never gotten loans as easy as these kids are getting loans to go to school.
Yeah, unsubstantiated approvals, I think, sometimes. But.
Now, I don't know how it is around the entire country, Scott, but, when you drive around the Phoenix, Tempe, Mesa area, it seems to me that the businesses that are really thriving are schools.
Yeah. I think they're popping up quicker than McDonald's.
I've got some schools I'm seeing on top of skyscrapers, right? Where we used to see like banks and insurance companies. All of a sudden now we're seeing, Aspen School, and we're seeing, Ottawa and University of Phoenix on these huge high rises. You go into downtown Tempe. It's a beautiful city that the whole entire university owns. They built these big glass buildings out on the Little Salt River. That they've dammed up as the Tempe Town Link. As you know, if you're from the area, they're renting out these office buildings to State Farm and to WeWork and to Carvana, and they are just absolutely raking in the money. Yeah. And when my son went to undergrad there, in state, he was paying $12,000 a semester, $24,000 a year, just tuition.
Yeah, and that's just bachelor's money. This is bachelor's degree
This
stuff.
is bachelor's
This is
degree.
not a advanced degree.
My daughter is $40,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
The amount of money to send our kids to school today is enormous. And it's crazy to me to see the degrees these guys are picking for the amount of money that we're sending them.
Yeah, the earning potential with the degrees they pick sometimes doesn't even justify the loan.
And I don't want to rope all these schools into the same. I don't. I'm just telling you what I'm kind of seeing. But my son said to me the other day, he said, hey, Dad, MCC, Mesa Community College professors were better and taught me more than Arizona State University in the business program. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. He's like, no. Actually, college was actually almost easier than high school. And I'm like, and he's a smart kid. He is. But man, we think we're sending these kids away to really educate them and get them ready for the world. And Scott, how many people have worked for us that have a degree that don't make much more than the person sitting next to them that don't have a degree that we just train?
Yeah, it's not a huge differentiator right now.
Right. So I think we put this notion in kids' head: if you go to college, you're going to get out, you're going to get that six-figure job, you're going to be able to pay back all these loans you're living off of and just go do it. It's going to be great. And then I think some of their experiences are, I graduate. Congratulations, you graduate. Now what are you going to do? And they're finding themselves in $36,000, $48,000, $60,000 a year jobs, almost in the exact same position they were in before they went to school, but now they have an $800, $900 house payment in a way,
and
right?
new additional payment to cover. Yeah.
I mean, some of the student debt we're seeing on these credit bureaus are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right. It is ridiculous what our kids are starting out with. Not just a clean slate; they're starting out in the hole out of college, and I think this is why we're seeing a lot of default on student debt.
Yeah, and I think where this matters the most to our listeners and people that work with Rent Perfect is you got people who aren't going to be able to afford a home. Yeah. Right? Or qualify for a home.
Yeah, which might be a good thing.
Yeah, that's
to
great.
Say, hey, fill up the rental pool. because they're not going to be able to qualify for a home. So we're going to have a lot of people come to us that have student debt. So how do we then, when we take someone through our criteria, how do we then analyze someone to say, hey, with or without this student debt, am I going to get my rent? And I think that's where it really ties into the podcast today is, what's in it for us landlords? Yeah. There is some good, but then there's some bad. Now, keep in mind, 30% of our population under 30 has student loans.
Okay. Yeah.
34% of those who have student loans are now delinquent on their student loans. Right?
That's a pretty good chunk.
There has been a pause on student loan payments since COVID.
Right.
It ends June 30th. Now, on June 30th, the spigot's supposed to turn back on. I wonder how many people now have been saving up their money and saying, hey, this bill's going to start June 30th. Right. I'm putting this aside. Or how many of them have a new car in their driveway?
Can I venture a guess? I would say 0% have been storehousing that money, going, for someday I may have to pay it back, so let me just put it in a separate account.
So our children are $1.75 trillion in debt on student loans. The spigot's getting ready to turn on, and I can tell you, they're not going to be able to pay it.
Yep.
So we are going to see as landlords more and more low credit scores and more defaults on student loans. Okay? It's just going to happen. So, Scott, someone comes to you, applies at your property, has a default on a student loan, credit score is 590. You throw them out the door and say move on?
No, I think for us, we have to look at the totality of their situation and go and look at their credit report, right? And go, okay, they're great on everything, but they've defaulted on this student loan. That weighs something for me, right? As I look at somebody, I think that makes a difference. But if their credit's bad in other areas of their life as well, it's probably going to be for me a no-go.
Right.
But if I look at it and say the only thing that they've defaulted on or that they're behind on is the student loan, because honestly, I mean, the numbers we're looking at right now, I would venture to say 50, 60, 70% of our applicants, if they're under 30, are going to come to us with some kind of student debt.
Right. And I'm going to take a little bit of responsibility and say, our generation and our government is kind of responsible for this. I know it's the kids that aren't paying.
Right.
But when COVID hit and the time hit, what did we say? Oh, guys, what shouldn't you pay? Hey, let's let you not pay student loan. We almost put in their head, when times get tough, ditch the student loans first. Right? And so I think they're going to do that.
Yeah. Well, and thanks to the eviction moratorium, we also saw that maybe you didn't pay your rent either. I mean,
But there are some severe consequences to those evictions.
Yes, there are.
I don't know if student debt has severe consequences.
No.
There are definitely consequences. And unfortunately, they might not ever become investors. They might not ever get ahead because they start out in such a hole. But back to analyzing. I love what you said. Not only analyzing, I think, these specific applicants that are in front of you and seeing what have they done outside of the student loan, how much credit do they have, what is their income, because this is just one part of the entire application. But I think you often have to analyze the market. Am I getting 5 applications, 10 people wanting to rent this place, right? We're kind of slowing up a little bit from this frenzy right now. So we're not getting as many applications as we used to. So I think analyzing the specific person, but you always want to take your criteria and analyze it and make sure it's set right with the market conditions too. So I would tell you, if you have someone coming in with a student loan default, there's just more analyzing to do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that these people are any different than the other 30, 40, 50% out there. I mean, you're just now going to see this more often. And once again, as an investigator, as a landlord, you're going to have to pick through the ones that are still good and let the ones go. You have a bad student loan, but you have a bad credit card and you have a bad, car loan.
Yeah.
Okay. That student loan is one check mark, but with all those check marks, I'm probably a no.
Right.
But if your only check mark is a $5,000, $10,000 student loan, I might overlook that at this point in this market and make sure everything else is good. So that's my 2 cents. That's me managing my properties in my market. Obviously, we never tell anybody what to what decision to make. We just want you to think. Just think and make the best decision possible. My gut, Scott, here's my gut. The Supreme Court is supposed to come out in the next 30 days to say whether Biden can forgive student debt.
Yeah.
Okay? My gut says if they say no, Biden, you don't have the ability to do that in the executive branch. The legislative branch has to do that. My gut is there'll be a push to get student loans off of credit bureaus.
Credits, yeah.
You're not going to see them.
Right.
Because everything is about protecting this group, right? And making sure they get what they want to get no matter what their history is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
my big takeaway from this, David, is this. The most educated person in this transaction needs to be you as the landlord, right? They can have their school education, but you as an investor, you as a housing provider need to be the most educated person in this transaction in relation to how you're picking someone to be in your property.
Right. And I'll leave you just one more thought. What does it say about the person who paid their student loan?
That guy's golden. I want that guy.
Yes. Welcome. Stay
Yeah.
as long as you want.
Right.
You're probably going to leave me to buy a house, but I certainly appreciate you, living up to all your obligations. Yeah. And that's what I want. I want a tenant living up to all of my obligations. That's a great relationship right there. And so there you go. Student loan, you're going to start seeing a lot of it. It's just one more thing that we have to analyze. And I think we can do it. Not that big a deal. And until next time, continue to rent perfect.